In 2005, I bought a yacht in Perth, Western Australia. Free Ascent had been neglected for a few years and needed a lot of resurrection work. But why in Perth? I had lived in landlocked Canberra for 6 years. 150k and 2.5-hour drive to the nearest coast at Bateman's Bay. But Canberra had a yacht club on the lake. It had a fleet of Flying 15s racing, so I bought an old one and joined in. And sometimes played with it on the dam at home in winter. I had bought the plans for another steel yacht and made a building base and a lofting floor for building the yacht frames. But life events change things sometimes. In 2004, we moved to Perth, and I drove across the Nullarbor to Perth with the last of our household items, moving close to Hillary's Yacht Club and Marina. So the attraction of ocean-going yachts was nearby again. In June 2005, I noticed a steel 10.5-metre yacht for sale. It hadn't been to sea for several years. The price was attractive. What sealed the attraction was a 3-cylinder Yangma 3 GM diesel motor, coupled to a Yangma SD 20-sail drive, no propeller shaft sealing problems. On inspection, the owner couldn't start the engine. After he left me alone to ponder, I did a few adjustments. I had the engine running very smoothly. A significantly reduced offer was accepted. The interior was functional but poorly designed. Not good for any long-term living aboard. The bathroom was in a small space and blocked access to one side of the engine. It had little headroom. The previous owner had lifted the floor level by 5 centimeters to increase the floor space, but it was still limited at the rear of the cabin. And I am 180 centimeters tall, so I had lost full headroom. A lot of work to be done. The first job was to attend to the growth on the bottom. The owner would only come down to the boat to have beers with friends. I found there were multiple layers of old anti-fouling paint to sand off. While up in the yard, a decision was made. Remodel the interior to suit a cruising life. That means for living on board for more than just a weekend. The first job completely got the interior and its unsuitable fit out, leaving the original steel hull and the excellent motor. Then to modify the rear of the cabin to add more height, lifting the floor for more space and room. I welded in all the framing for the new cabin layout. Only after all this welding could I relaunch the yacht. Then finish all the interior woodwork. By the end of 2005, we were ready to relaunch. New anti-fouling paint to be added at this time. Windows were added later. Fit-out continued down below. Foot pump for salt water to sink for rinsing, etc. Fresh water delivered by a pressure system. Solar panels, dinghy davits, gas storage, and cockpit bimini added. At first, the boat sometimes had heavy weather helm, so I added a bowsprit to balance the sail plan a bit better. In 2010, still with the mast and sails that came with the boat at purchase. We spent years sailing the coastal waters of Perth, and many weekends and holidays at Rottnest Island.
So tell me about the day. What do you think about the day?
What do you mean, what do I think about the day? It's a beautiful day. Sun shining, balmy breeze.
Then in April 2011, a minor disaster. The yard workers were lifting out the mast for me to refurbish it. The manager intervened and his changes removed the mast support. The mast fell backward onto the solar panel support. It hit the solar panels at the mast's weakest point, the anchor position for the crosstrees and lower stays. It naturally broke there. The insurance company couldn't get a new timber mast built under $16,000. They offered a cash settlement of $12,000 and I accepted that. I had been thinking about the wishbone ketch rig since 1974 when I met Bill Golder on Warneta in Melbourne. an early rough sketch from previous years. So now a chance to give it a go. New track for the main staysail with a self-tacking sheet. The vent was removed. Sheet up 5 meters into the main mast, then down and back to a winch. Mizzen staysail track and the new mizzen mast base. My new cabin design had support for a future mizzen mast built in. We were a motorboat for a couple of months while I built the masts at home. Then in April 2012 the masts and rigging were ready, so up onto land again. The new main mast fitted into its tabernacle. Then rope and pulley system to pull it up into the vertical position. Rope back to a sail winch. I had a rigger helping, as some of the wire stays could only be measured, then built once the masts were up and aligned, especially the triadic stay between the mast tops. Then this stage was done, so back into the water. Next, the foresail reefing furlers arrived along with new winches. Installation was complex. Jib and main staysail furlers. Main masthead with jib, staysail, and fisherman main furlers visible and VHF radio aerial on the top. Fisherman mainsail and mizzen staysail furlers. Mizzen masthead showing staysail furler, AIS radio aerial, TV aerial, wind display sender and triadic stay up to the mainmast. The action center. Winches for 2 staysails, fisherman main and mizzen halyard, on mast. Aerial cables out through black tubing. Mizzen sail controls on the boom. Furling lines installed later here on the deck. Initial mizzen sheeting, changed later in Coffin Bay. And finally, the sails arrived and all fitted as planned. Time to go sailing again. Years later in Esperance Bay, Dover, Tasmania. But that's another sailing story. Free Ascent is a 34 feet, 10.5 meters, steel single-chine yacht. The design is a Herman Boro Temptress from the Western Australian designer. It was built in Perth, Western Australia. Visit my channel to see the travels of Free Ascent.